keeping with our stress on going ahead with exploring science and technology, which is emerging, I have invited Dr. Kanneganti Ramarao. Okay, he is a computer scientist who has a PhD in computer scientist. He is among the first batch from the IIT-Madras when computer science was introduced. And then he went on to work in different places, including Bell Labs. He founded a startup called Aganita, and then he is with the HCL, which it was acquired by HCL. He worked as a CTO, and he is currently now in Michigan. And he is into artificial intelligence. He specializes in programming, languages, and he has other interests and hobbies. He writes articles in Telugu. He has a special, I think, liking for Telugu. you know. So let us find out from him, discuss with him what are the implications of artificial intelligence, because he has been with computer science right from the beginning, I would say. So, and his own journey from where he started in the 1980s and how technology has evolved from then till date, and what could be the future implications, in particular reference to India. So thank you very much for accepting our invitation graciously and coming.
Thank you for having me here. So, just as a way of introduction, I joined IIT-Madras in 1982. In 1982, when I joined, by that time there was only one school that was offering computer science before. That was IIT Kanpur. It started 3 or 4 years before. That had IIT B.Tech in computer science. So when we went to Madras, we didn't know exactly what computers meant. But all we knew is all the toppers were taking it. And so because I got a good rank, there were only 18 seats in all of South India. So because I got a good rank, I could get into it. Therefore, I went into it. I had no idea what it was. And really speaking, computer science need not necessarily be in engineering college. In fact, it is more better clubbed in the Department of Mathematics. Where I went to do PhD, that actually was a part of Department of Mathematics. Because computer science and computer engineering are two different things. Building computers is one thing, and making computers do things is another thing. This is mathematics, this is engineering, comes out of electronics. So a lot of in the West, say Berkeley or any other place where you take a look at computer engineering is clubbed here, and computer science is better part of mathematics. So I went into computer science part of it, and building the chips. I went to build programs, actually specifically programming languages. And ever since I spent only in the technology role. That is, I was head of architecture at HCL, that was the various places. I was writing papers, patents, etc. And interestingly, I just want to give you background on AI, what kind of thing that I've seen AI happen. In 1986, when we were graduating, in fact, in 1985, 1 year before I graduated, AI became a really, really big thing at the time. The rumor was Japanese people, they were building the supercomputer, which is supposed to become super intelligent. So America started investing quite a bit of money in AI. So all these universities were giving like scholarships to study in AI. But
this was in mid-80s.
Mid-80s, 85, 84 onwards actually. In fact, in 84 we had as far as you know, one of the first computer conferences in India, in Madras, under IIT Madras. We went for that, and people were talking about the supercomputers and AI. Except what is that? That AI. That AI is entirely different than this AI. It's like calculator versus computer, right? That AI was essentially saying that is, what if you teach in fact, my B.Tech, one of the projects that I did was actually in AI, but I wouldn't call it AI these days. What it is, can we teach computer how to do things? For example, how to drink water. Let's say take that kind of problem. Historically, how we wrote programs was, you give directions. Take your hand, grasp it on the glass, lift it, and bring it to your mouth and drink it. Things like that. You think that's easy, that, but it is not. As an experiment, if you want to do, for example, you lived in your house all your life, right? Give somebody precise directions how to go from your bedroom to, say, your kitchen. How many steps do you have to take? what angle do you need to turn, and definitely you'll bump into walls. Right? That is the precision actually that was required in regular programming. So the precision was holding these people back. Instead of the precision, what these people thought is, we could give these computers rules. And when we give the rules, we say that we don't tell you which rule to apply. You figure out what rule to apply when, and I'm not going to tell you exactly how to get. I'm going to give you the rough layout and I basically give you the rules, and based on the rules, you take the steps. So that 1980s, what we had is rule-based systems that became expert systems. They were still useful, by the way. For example, large expert systems work in some chemical plants. All they are rules. For example, if the temperature goes beyond this, allow this. If something else is this, allow this. So normal programming is very difficult to capture all these kind of rules. So they just throw a bunch of rules and the system somehow figures it out. So that is what happened in 80s. And the complexity is, how do we handle how many rules? 1,000 rules, 10,000 rules, million rules. So what happens if there are rules? If a rule A contradicts another rule, what do you do? So that is what the research focus was at that time. And so they used to call this problem planning. That is, I have these rules, which rule to apply where and how. So they reduced the problem to arranging the blocks. So if you go back to literature in 1990s also, you always see that is, you'd find it funny. Why are these people obsessed with arranging the blocks on a table? Turns out that is, you can reduce the planning problem into this problem. If you say this goes on top of this can fit with this, these are rules. With these rules, with the constraint space, with the constraint, can you come up with a solution? That's what they're testing. Except that is, no useful thing came out of this AI at all. So the funding dried up in 1980s. They call it AI winter. Nothing happened. Nothing grew. Only few things came out. I mean, nothing, not much of it. One is actually the rule-based systems I talked about, right? That they found it really, really useful in one area, which is mortgage applications in the bank or loan applications. Because the mortgage applications, you cannot say, write a straight program. There's so many government rules that are there. And on top of it, there are kind of a heuristic rules. If this person has a job more than 3 years, stable job, then we can give a loan. If he's changing jobs frequently, like, in the last 10 years, he changed 20 jobs, danger, warning sign. So, or if he's buying in this neighborhood, give it to him because house prices are going up in that neighborhood, like that. So these are the kind of rules that is very, very reminiscent of AI, but except it's not AI, it's just a straightforward making the decision, except writing the programs, you write it this one. And in fact, just most people in Infosys or any of these companies, they are familiar with this. It's called, there is a Fair Isaac system, this is a set of rule system. They don't know, but it came out of AI. The Deep Blue, that B.Tech, that part of a similar. Deep Blue, actually yes, but it's much, much later. It actually, there is a twist on that. Without going into too much of technical detail, I'll give it you what happened. After 1980s, 90s, this all died down, right? Because, nothing much was coming. The money that we were putting in, they were not getting the results. In fact, all of you heard of a physicist called Feynman, right? Mm-hmm. Do you know Feynman worked in a computer company? He was a professor at Caltech, Nobel Prize winner, the most defining physicist. In fact, we studied his physics books to get into IIT. That kind of a scientist. Everybody knows, a popular scientist. For a brief period, he actually worked in a computer company, Thinking Machines. The name of the machines is Thinking Machines. Came out of MIT. It was entirely built ground up just for AI. And the company collapsed. Nothing came out of it. I mean, Nobel Prize winning physicist. And in fact, several of the people out there in the company are the guy who right now in charge of Java. He's actually one of the founders of that company. Very big guys. Nothing happened. So the interest kind of died down and internet happened. And people gave up on the idea of artificial intelligence completely. Nothing happened. But then there is two problems. Even though it's not artificial intelligence, there is one problem that was nagging most people. I worked in Bell Labs. It used to bother the labs people. What is it? Speech recognition. Speech recognition, in fact, by the way, India has a very good research program in speech recognition. There is a Professor Rana who was considered a father of speech recognition in India. IIT, Hyderabad, and he is involved with pretty much.
What was his name?
B. Rana. IIC Bangalore, IIT-Madras, and founding member of IIT and IIIT in the speech recognition program. Anybody who came out of India in signal processing speech recognition, they would have studied under him or under his students. He was always working in that. So they were trying to solve general purpose problem, but the AT&T problem was very simple, namely phone operator. +1 for this, +2 for this, or having conversation. Which department do you want? Sales. So recognition of the few technical words is what they wanted. So they built one system. It is not exactly AI, but it is precursor to AI. So they earlier that the rule-based systems I was talking, right? Instead of the rules, they use some mathematical structures. It is like, if this happened, then I go this way. If this happened, I go this way. It's like a complicated network kind of a thing. It is called hidden Markovian chains. So they built that kind of a system. They use the system to basically, they train that system to respond to this kind of a voice recognition. It has got tremendous response, but only limited use. They were rolling it out for all these kind of a telephone departments, etc. They were rolling the companies that to automate the call, to divert it to wherever to locate to, that kind of thing that they were diverting. And also they could conduct interviews in the sense that is, survey, what do you say, good, bad, what is your name, do you want, like that kind of thing, that simple conversation they could do. IBM had a similar program competing in that at the time. So that IBM was via voice. So those group of people who are working on this problem are actually mathematical structures. So Deep Blue is adjacent effort to that. So it is not exactly rule-based system, but it's not exactly modern AI either. So it is a combination of those kind of things as far as I understand it, talking to the people that time. So this is all is happening on the side. Almost all of these things, right, look very Herculean effort. For example, when AT&T did all this work for the speech recognition for their telephone sales kind of applications, they really didn't have any kind of an idea how to extend to every other kind of situation, because everything is to take computationally very intensive thing, and they really didn't have a model of actually developing it for other things. And also very few scientists were able to do it. Very little known fact is that is the same scientists that actually worked on the speech recognition problem. They realized that what they are doing is looking at the signals and looking at the kind of a relationship with the signals and going to the next state and capturing what is the current state, what kind of a decision making they need to do, some mathematical structure. So naturally, where did they go? To Wall Street. The largest, that is the most successful investment company ever, came out of IBM's speech research. That is a company called Renaissance Technologies. It, for example, every year over year, it returned 70% for 20 years. So if you went there and instead of eating lunch with that guy, if you invested lunch there, you would have been a multimillionaire by the end of 20 years. It is that kind of money we're talking, right? So they start taking money from outside. They start only investing only their own money. So all this kind of speech recognition AI things, they basically extended to that. But that was not basically solving other problems. So they found mathematical uses. So that renewed the interest in understanding. Let's get away from this kind of a rule system. Let's get into understanding mathematically how can we model it. So that basically the Jeffrey Hinton in Canada, that kind of thing that gave rise to the modern AI. Ultimately, that is what they are doing. It is they're taking large amount of data and somehow creating this mathematical structure in, and that you don't know how, but you give the input, it can tell you whose face it is. Give the input, it can tell you what the next word is. So that is a kind of AI that basically that I have built.
I think it's kind of creating algorithms.
So the funny thing is, algorithm actually means that is a way of doing it. So A, then B, then C. This one is not that. This one is a black box. For example, if I ask you, let's say you turn this side. If I ask you, why did you cannot tell you why. It is just something that brain made you do. You cannot account for all your actions, even involuntary, even the voluntary actions. Why did you delay waking up? I didn't feel like. What does it mean you didn't feel like? How did brain basically? We don't know a lot of things, right? But in the history of science, there is a kind of this kind of a thing is there. We generally say that man is a rational animal, right? A philosopher actually made it more accurate. Man is a rationalizing animal. What it means is, it's not that is we are rational. We want to rationalize. We want to come up with a reason. That is, for example, instinctually, that's what we do. That means that is, for example, usually when we dream, right? That is last minute something happens, the water falls on us. We dream that is something that we become wet in the dream, right? That means our mind constructs a backstory to match the reality. Every optical illusion is that. We see something, there is a darkness that's not there. Our mind constructs the kind of reality that makes us believe that. So we are rationalizing things that is. So it is. So our brain is a black box. We think we understand what's going on. We are only sitting outside and basically saying that is, this is probably why I'm making the decision. But little do we know why we make the decision. In fact, these just biologists think that is, including our gut bacteria also participate in the decision. So the gut reaction is gut bacteria active. So we don't know. The same way, if we give up on this idea, let me find out, exactly step by step, instead of saying, I don't know, I don't care, give me a black box. That black box is it.
But how did they come up with it? It's like mimicking the mind, right? Or brain, so to speak.
Yes.
But with mathematical structures, how could they come up with something like this? I mean, Jeffrey Hunter, as you referred to, the father of AI, he said it's now conscious. We don't know what it will do.
Well, I beg to differ on that, but we'll come back to that first.
But my question is, how did they come up with this?
Yes. So I told you that there is a historical precedence of all, and the one way to think about is, in some senses, we are encoding knowledge in some system, right? We try to encode the knowledge using the rules. Now, instead of encoding the knowledge, we can think of things as a pattern. If you see this pattern, observe this particular way. If you see this pattern, how are you describing this pattern? That's a question, right? And so this is basically happened over many different kind of attempts. Like I told you, hidden Markovian chains. That turns out that is a way of mimicking, understanding the word frequency, what is the next word might be. If you're given the sequence of what is the next word might be. So let me explain the context of in the current day LLM. That might make it more concrete. So normally what happens is that is you type something. What is LLM doing? It's predicting the next word, likelihood of next word.
LLM for language
large language model. When you say ChatGPT, it is running an LLM. I'll explain. Large means obviously it's large. No data. Language is, its fundamental capability is to be able to speak language, understand language. I will tell you why that is the most predominant AI today, and it's going to be tomorrow also. Before LLM, for example, there was facial recognition. That's what it started with Google. You upload a photo, it will recognize your photos. That was one kind of a thing. But this is more general and interesting and easier to understand in some senses. So what is the LLM? The LLM doing is, the words are coming. It is somehow distilling all these essences of words and into some kind of a series of numbers, and so that it is predicting the next one. Now the question comes: how are you able to predict? Encode these words into numbers. The fact is that we always have been encoding words into numbers. When you're typing the computer only knows zeros and ones, right? So your words are going to zeros and ones, right? But the problem is that when you use the kind of numbers like that, in language you understand, for example, king and queen, male, female. But when you translate it to numbers, that kind of relationship is lost, right? You can reproduce the word, but you lost the essential connections between the words. So what the language guys started doing is, they're taking the same word and they're translating it to many different parameters, many different dimensions. On one dimension, king and queen are related. It is namely ruling. On another direction, king and prince are related, male, right? Another dimension, king and spade are related because cards, pack of cards, right? So how many dimensions are there? Whenever you hear that is a large language model, billion parameters, 70 billion parameters, think of them as the dimensions. That many kind of different ways you can measure it. If you are the 760 billion means that is not everything, every word will have all 760 billion parameters, by the way, but every word could have this 100, this many, not 760 is the size of it, but actually 150,000, 200,000, that many different dimensions you are encoding a single word. That means if I give two words, and you may see that completely unrelated, you can see that is in one dimension they make that. For example, it may be a slang originated in London slum, a particular slum. Okay, it's recognized as that. It may be used by Charles Dickens in one novel. It is one dimension. So we have so many different dimensions. So many different ways you can encode it. Once encoded now, right? Now question comes, what kind of mathematical operations can you do? That is what the research was done mostly about. So that research gave rise to, how, considering we are able to encode the words, then we can encode whatever I heard so far, and based on that we can kind of predict which was the word is related to, most likely relate, closest relation to, in this vast universe of millions of hundreds of thousands of dimensions.
How does this encoding happen? Details of.
So
Because it takes a lot of work.
yes, no wonder Nvidia stock is going up, right? It takes time. So, well, the lot of most fascinating thing is how all these things come together, right? So, independent of all of this, something else was going on, right? No, forget about it. Independent of all of this, something else was going on. What was it? Gaming. So, you think that is usually that is that we only think of as gaming people as regular whatever people that very few people can do. Turns out it's actually 1/3 of the market actually in computer games versus gaming. Gaming is a really, really big market. Microsoft makes a ton of money on gaming, Xbox, and in fact, any game that is published, it's a big thing. In fact, the first killer application for PC is actually a game called Doom. People would actually buy the PC only to play Doom. It was that kind of thing. So it turns out that is when you're playing the games, right? You usually the characters move from here to there. So that actually corresponds to that you represent the entire what you see on the screen in a matrix, numbers like that. So if you want to move one character from here to here, it turns out to be a mathematical operation in linear algebra. So you're moving from here to here. So if you are at the textures, for example, you move from here to here, and there's one more person behind, so you have to hide it. That's another mathematical operation. So everything that what you are seeing on the screen, they defined it as a set of basic mathematical operations. And so these mathematical operations, if you do it on a regular computer, it is a bit slow because regular computer is a general purpose thing. It does every calculation, including this. But here you have 1,000 by 1,000 pixels. That means so many kind of pixels, like 10 to the power 6 pixels. Now you are trying to do the mathematical operations on it. If you do one by one, too slow. Even with really fast computer, it is too slow. So they came up with a special purpose graphics cards. They are very dumb. They don't know anything to do. All they do is 5 or 6 operations. Give me this frame buffer, they call frame buffer, and tell me the operation I need to do. From here to here, the matrix, I need to move it or move it. Multiply it, I multiply it. Subtract. Bunch of handful of operations. That's the graphics card. So this graphics card people were developing it faster and faster because the games were becoming more and more sophisticated, real life. So to keep up with them, they were building this kind of graphics cards. And so Nvidia is one such company that was building the graphics card. So some smart people basically said, hey, this is a nifty thing. It's doing all the mathematical operations I need to do. What if I take my AI problem, and because ultimately I'm representing the numbers in a kind of matrix, and I will reduce all of these matrix operations into those basic operations, then I can use the graphics chip actually to do these fast computations. So what used to take like hours, it takes like minutes or seconds for that matter. So suddenly there is a demand for the graphics card to actually do AI increased. And of course, there's one more industry that actually figured out this graphics cards are really good for this kind of a heavy duty special purpose, not every computation, a few computations. That is crypto industry. So these two people started pumping money into first crypto, next AI, money into these graphics cards. So you never heard of this situation in the US where if MSRP is a car, for example, if MSRP is 10,000, you expect to pay 9,000. You always bargain below. For the first time, these graphics cards were selling more than MSRP. So there's too much demand. Crypto, they were buying. So then by the time crypto, this thing fell down a little bit, AI guys started buying up. And this company was sitting on this enormous amount of cash. So they started increasing the size, making it bigger and bigger and bigger. So that it is keeping up pace with the AI computations that are required. I mean, keeping up pace at least in some senses. The fact is not with the price. If you want to do kind of a heavy duty OpenAI kind of a thing, that they say you need billions of dollars. Billions we're talking. That basically entire Telangana state budget is 20 billion, 30 billion, something like 25 billion or 27 billion. Entire Telangana budget. Not enough for one data center. For that purpose. OpenAI people will raise, will basically say that we want $30 billion, $50 billion. They want that much money. Every time you generate an image in OpenAI, they are losing money. So that's basically what the story of how that computation is made possible. The thing is, if that computation is not possible, then we wouldn't have had AI. That computation is possible because some other revolution, the crypto people pumping money, etc., that gave the boost. So they started manufacturing those, so it became ubiquitous. So that gave the computing power to do the thing. But by the way, the third one, I don't drink coffee. Thank you.
Juice.
Water is good.
Juice.
No, water is fine. So, sure. Okay. So, the fact is that it is a very happy coincidence that happens. The third coincidence is actually, I said that is this AI looks for patterns in things, right? Our mind usually, when we ask it to describe a pattern, we describe the pattern again based on our constraints of logic, right?
Or maybe experiences.
Exactly, experiences. There are two things. The way that we explain it using explained logics. The experience is the way that is we come to decisions, but we try to put it into the rational framework. So in history of science, the philosophy of science, there are two kinds of movements. One is called rationalism, and they're called empiricism. Rationalism basically means that is you try to look at the world like formulas. You come up with theories. You explain based on a theory. Empiricism means you do experiments. Based on the experiment, you basically say induction. This is 10 times I basically mix these two things, it became blue. So it's going to become blue. That's empiricism. That's induction. Here, I come up with a kind of a mathematical form. Mathematics is mostly this kind of a rationalist approach. You don't do experiments there. Biology is mostly empiricism. What has happened is, in some senses, Newton basically matched both of them. In the sense, he is as you very well, is a rationalist as well as empiricist. He basically used both the things. When it came to the computers, right? We tried the rationalist approach, as in writing programs, finite programs. We are trying to try the empiricist approach. We need a lot of data. Quote unquote, we need to do a lot of experiments, right? That's nothing but data. So because of the internet, everybody posting their photos on the thing, everybody posting what they ate for lunch, what every opinion is on the internet, right? So we end up having large corpus of data available for training. Because the Project Gutenberg kind of people, they digitized the entire textbooks until 1930s. Google has taken upon itself to digitize the entire corpus of libraries. They actually give money to be able to digitize it. So for the first time, we are sitting on so much of data that is, trillions of kind of files, pages, etc., which is a system able to digest and understand and learn the patterns. So if the data didn't happen, if the Facebook and all those kind of things didn't happen, we wouldn't have had the data. If the data didn't happen, we wouldn't have had this thing. If the computing power is not there, we wouldn't have had it. If we didn't have the mathematical insights that basically led to minor advances in it, I think they would have figured it out, but that's another thing that happened at the right time. So all these three things happened at the right time, therefore, that somehow we are in the state where
This is a logical conclusion of whatever.
Yeah, I mean, if in the hindsight, it appears a historical inevitability of the things that basically come to a confluence. But now we're in the situation where I can kind of throw a piece of text at it and say, okay, edit it, it will edit. Right? So that's somewhat of a bird's eye view of how we came about to where we are at today.
You're finishing, right? Feynman lectures back in the 80s when you were in school, were they popular here?
So, okay, I went to a special school called Nagarjuna Sagar APRJC. Okay, so let's face it, textbooks are a joke. You basically pretty much can read in 1 week, entire textbook, right? Entire textbook, physics textbook. It shouldn't take more than a week for anything, but nothing more than. What do you do after? So we are prepared for IIT exam. So unlike these days, we didn't have coaching class or anything like that. What you basically go and study hard problems, right? So Feynman lectures was a rite of passage to read the Feynman lectures. Fantastically produced. We used to have these 3 books in the library, so we used to read that.
Soviet books,
Hmm?
Soviet books, like that. Soviet Union.
Soviet Union books that were mathematical books. So, for example, there is a green book that we used to call some mathematics problem. Solving that problem is like showing you are in the subject. That's the mathematics problems. Mathematics, physics problems also Irudov. I mean, I don't know if that still exists. Irudov problems. So that was a problem. And the rite of passage is to be able to, by the end of the second year, we have to prove E equal to MC square from using the Newtonian thing, but starting with I forget whatever the equation was. Like when depending on the speed of the matter, the energy, how the mass changes, right? So when you do dmv by dt, mass also changes. It's not only velocity. So if velocity is high enough, then you basically can compute. If it is at you can derive the equation equal to MC square from that. So that was the rite of passage for us.
This is a residential school.
At Nagarjuna Sagar. In fact, several of the people locally, I mean, for example, Ramakrishna Rao, the principal finance secretary, was my classmate. He went there. In fact, I came from there. So, and Mahendra Reddy, he was my senior. Several of the people that actually went, Ramakrishna, he also saw equal to MC square. I mean, if you want to go to IIT, that's what you have to do.
He must be agreeing,
What?
He must be agreeing,
Right.
Then to IAS, you are a scientist.
No. He is not a finance person. The most interesting is this is the way you should think about the science, etc. Right? I'm by nature, I still would call myself actually a linguist. I say there are that is, you can say that is, if you are a believer in the God, etc. You can say I'm living in the God-made universe. I cannot change the matter of it. There are 2 things I can justifiably proud of myself. That is, which are entirely human created. They didn't exist. It is not God created. It's created by human. Language and mathematics. Like physics, you're explaining what is there. Chemistry, you're explaining what is there. Biology, you're explaining what is there. Economics, you're explaining what is happening. But language and mathematics, it didn't exist. It is purely out of your own creation. You created it. That is what most fascinating about it. So turns out there is a very strong correlation between these 2 things. The mathematics is, you can define entire mathematics as actually a part of a language. If you look at 1900s, the convergence of the 3 fields, mathematics, philosophy, and language, it has happened. Bertrand Russell, you call him mathematician, or this one is both. Wittgenstein, you call him linguist or philosopher, both. Like that, there is a kind of convergence that has happened. In some senses, when I take a look at large language models, that is what is some sense demonstrating. That is, mathematical models express this way in language. And the fundamental questions it's writing is a philosophical nature. Like, what does it mean to, you were asking about consciousness, right? What does it mean to have a consciousness? That's the kind of a question that would come up. I mean, I must say that is, philosophers are pretty much divided about it. We cannot. I understand Geoffrey Hinton, majorly respect him and all these things for seeing, rescuing AI from the winter of AI kind of thing like that. But that is, there is a bit of a joke, for example. Suppose I tell you, a whale has like a shark or a whale or a dolphin. It has a life. You agree, right? Suppose I say submarine also has life. Then you ask, submarine that is not life. Submarine is swimming. Let us say you say that. How is it swimming? No, I'm driving that. It's not swimming. You say, what is the difference? Dolphin is going in the water. This is also going in the water. Then you say, dolphin is eating. Oh, I'm feeding this thing pure. Like that, you basically can draw the analogies between different things. So from that perspective, there are two ways to understand the world again. It is a lot of this kind of a thinking goes back to ancient Greeks. Similar thing might exist in Indian philosophy also. I'm not well versed in Indian philosophy, Sankhya, or any of those things. In the Western philosophy, these things, because they are explained to mere mortals like us, I'm able to understand it. One is denotational, another is operational. Denotational means you think the property of the thing is intrinsic itself. A chair is a chair. That's it. There is no more explanation. A chair has properties. Chair. Operational is you judge something by the operations. That is, you heard the word, if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, it is a duck. That means you're operationally judging it. Turns out that is, we are like the same way, rationalist approach is mostly denotational and empiricist is mostly operational. So the operational world generally is what a business is like, because why do I care what it is as long as it's serving my purpose? Right? Why do I care if it's a duck or not, if it is as long as it gives me eggs? Something like that. If it's a machine that is laying eggs, why would I care? I am testing it at all different properties. If the property is so, that's what I want. So if you are defining the consciousness not as an innate quality, but as a series of experiments that you can conduct, and it has you can say that it has a consciousness. But the thing is,
Here it can interject.
right?
I read somewhere that how it happens is that if we give AI a task, whatever it is, now the argument is that we don't know how it can go about it.
Right.
That is where the problem lies. How
Yes.
see, it could be good, it could be bad.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
which is the reason why some people like
People are
even
afraid.
Elon Musk or be it Jeffrey Hunter or somebody are warning that this is going to be dangerous.
Yes, and I completely understand. In fact, let me give you the analogy. They were 100% correct. That again goes back to what I said, rationalizing. We are not able to rationalize about it. Therefore, we kind of are worried about it naturally, right? I'll give you a simple example. Suppose there are two people. You ask them mathematical questions. 1 plus 1, what is it? One person says 3. Other person, most 19, or you ask a series of questions like additions. This guy makes most of them wrong, 98% of the wrong, but usually 1 plus 1 equal to 3, 2 plus 3 equals 7, like that is answer. And this other person gives answers most of the time correct, except a couple of times he says, what is 1 plus 1? He says banana. So this is what happens. This guy answered most of the time correct, 19.9% correct. Couple of times he's basically like, he is behaving quote unquote irrationally in your mind. In here, he's answering most of the things wrong. You feel more comfortable with this guy than this guy. Why? Because you understand this guy's problem. You understand this guy's mistakes. This guy's mistakes, you have no clue. Because why would 1 plus 1 equal banana? You have no way of modeling that. That is why you are kind of in that. The fact is that is most of this kind of the AI kind of thing that is happening in a very higher dimensions, the way that is you cannot imagine kind of thing that. That is the kind of thing that is happening. Therefore, you have a right to be afraid, but because you don't know exactly how it is going to happening because it's out of your hands. But I say that's something and something we have reconciled since 1930s. Because in 1930s something has happened. Because for the first time, there is in mathematics, in languages, and in physics and in chemistry, every different field there is a twist that happened in 1930s. And the similar thing is happening now. I'll tell you what it means. Up until 1930s, as a physicist, you very well know, the classical physics, everybody basically thought that is things are exact. What we don't know, but we can know. If we put enough effort, we can know. That's the idea, attitude. But 1930s with uncertainty principle, etc., they showed is quantum physics. They showed no, it is not possible. There are things you don't know. In mathematics, same Gödel has proved there are going to be mathematical proofs or theorems or truths that you can never prove. Not that you don't know. No matter what you do, you can never prove that. That is, your system is fundamentally limited. It's not your system. Any system is fundamentally limited. That means he's limiting the way that is our approach to truth itself. When the paper came out, people didn't know what to make out of it. Suddenly, it's like, it is entire belief in the science, ever progressing. That is how we can know more and more. Suddenly shaken. That is mathematically proving this. No matter what you do, you're always doomed. It is that kind of thing. Third one, that by the way, there is little known Gödel another theory. Any kind of a theory that actually is sufficiently powerful cannot really prove itself, right? That is, the validity of the system cannot be proved within the theory. In some way, that is, it kind of applied. Think about this way: humans, however intelligent we are, we won't be able to completely understand ourselves. It's like getting out of our own body and observing it. We don't have the space to do it, so to speak. That is, we are confined within the sphere. We are asked to understand the entire sphere, but we are a part of the sphere. Anything we do, this keeps coming up. Anything we do affects the sphere. Anything we understand, we are again constrained by observations and everything. This kind of a thing that philosophically people started recognizing in the 1930s. Despite the fact there is another kind of philosophical movement that kind of prevailed, namely, like, a kind of a variation of pragmatism. What it means is, like, the business starts saying, if it quacks like a duck, quacks like a duck, how do I care? So I don't know. Like, that is, for example, quantum physics basically says you cannot predict which atom is going to split next. That's okay. I don't care as long as I can make atom bomb. Like that kind of. So I don't care as long as what AI is, what AI does, as long as it does my work. So
Dangerous.
yes, but let's come back to that 1 second. Yes, it is dangerous. So there is a saying in English that is that God made people and Smith and Wesson made them equal. You heard of the saying? You know what Smith and Wesson is? It's a gun manufacturer. That is, God made everybody. But the fact is that some people are really strong, some people are really weak, right? You always talk about how strong people, they're like beating up people, etc. Their strength is might, and the king is really large and big, and etc. Right? But once the guns came, it doesn't matter. The strong guy basically is, and the weak guy, they are equal. The gun, as long as they have guns. But the thing is, the skills have transferred to a different domain. Instead of brute strength, a different kind of a thing that happened. The same kind of a thing that happened in Industrial Revolution as well. People talk about how India was producing 1/5 the world GDP at one point. The fact of the matter, they neglect to tell you is, at that time GDP is proportional to number of people, because everybody productivity was the same. There is no machine was not giving advantage. Suddenly the machines happened in the West, and the productivity went up 100 times, 10 times, 100 times, etc. So their GDP kept growing. I mean, not growing, like, complete paradigm shift kind of thing. Our GDP is stuck, modest rate, because our strength is not increasing. We are what we are, right? So that kind of thing that is increasing. Now think in the current context, right? So you remember that is at one time, in my childhood at least, memorization is considered intelligence. This guy could memorize the periodic table. He's really intelligent. That's what they would say. Now, with a phone in your pocket, with a Google at your behest, why do you need to memorize any fact that you want to? What is GDP of Telangana? You don't need to know exact number, but you do need to have a rough idea so that you can compare in your mind. But whenever in doubt, you can always refer to it. Suppose you say that is with AI, it's taken up one more notch. It's not knowledge it's giving entire thing. So if you are able to equalize people, even in the kind of ways that without memorization, people are able to function because of Google now. People completely forgot that art also. For example, at one time we were remembering all the phone numbers. Now people don't even know their own phone number almost. Like I can guarantee that. I mean, if I ask your parents' number, you will be able to tell me, right? Because you have program. So that's what happened to us. And in our times, we had to remember 55, 60 phone numbers because we don't know. That's what we had to do. The same way, what is going to happen a decade from now? That is what we need to start thinking about in terms of the implications of it. The summary is that it is, we got to get with the program. That's what it is, right? I mean, so what is the best way to take advantage of that fact? This is what happened. The bus, that is how India missed. For example, Akbar and Victoria, not Victoria, what was the previous guy? Well, no, the British guy, they already had a printing press, earliest version of it. Akbar said, why do we need it? Not particularly useful to us. It was not Victoria time, it was before times. Why do we need it? We don't need it. Nobody reads it. Who wants to read it anyway? So printing press never came to India. What if India embraced the printing press completely and thoroughly? We didn't know what exactly would have happened. Language would have stabilized and the knowledge would have spread and middle class would have grown and things would have happened, right? Or South Korea, how it has happened, how basically it has embraced the technology. Right? So I think that is, if it is going to happen, if we don't have control over it, we have to think of the best way to handle it, right? What is the best way to handle it? Because think about this. We were blindsided by the social revolution, that is the social media revolution. I would say blindsided because none of the political parties saw it coming. A few people who saw it coming, they became the winners, literally. They won the elections, right? And the entire media, it did not see the power of it. It did not embrace it. I mean, why didn't Twitter come out of the big news, any of the news organizations? Yes, there are thoughts about it, like channel conflict and innovators dilemma and all that kind of thing. But the fact of the matter is that it completely blindsided the majority of the influence, social anthropologists to everybody. And that's going to happen again now with AI, right? It's going to happen. I mean, I can give you an incident, right? That is just like I was talking about the guns, right? Suddenly the skill of fighting with the physical power is gone. What you really need is a fighting ability to fight with a gun. That means ability to aim and shoot, ability to take care of your revolver, ability to draw fast. There are different set of skills that have emerged as important ones. If people recognized it, then they would win. If people don't recognize it, they would lose. And so, unfortunately, when I talk to college professors, they're kind of a like head in the sand kind of thing. What it means is, I understand to some extent what they are saying, but I don't agree with the way they are dealing with it. In the sense, what they are doing is, let us prohibit AI in homeworks. Don't use ChatGPT. Without using ChatGPT, show it to me. But the matter of the fact is that if the guy is going to go to work tomorrow, at work, as a company owner, I don't care exactly how you produce the code. If you produce ChatGPT, if you use magic and produce it, I don't care as long as it works, right? How does it matter that he hand produced it? He go to a restaurant. How does it matter the person ground the dosa batter with hand or he made it in the machine? It doesn't matter to you. The taste is what matters to you. And how quickly it comes is what matters to you. How cheap is what matters to you. Your parameters are entirely different. So the companies are looking at different parameters that the professors are looking at it. However, I understand that is their way of thinking. Part of it is true, which is, namely, that is, AI is useful, chatbots and all these things are useful in the case where you already know the answer. If you know the answer, you can ask it and verify the answer. And if you know the rough contours of the answer, it can fill in the details. But if you don't have any idea, it's going to be disaster. You don't know what to ask. You don't know if that answer is, for example, let us say that is, you know what dosa looks like. You know how it tastes like. You ask it, it produces it, you eat it, you say, good. Suppose some random guy from Mongolia comes. He asks for a dosa. Suppose he makes idli. He doesn't know. How does he know? He just eats it. He says, idli, dosa, it's like a steamed food. That's what he would describe it as. Right? So that is the kind of thing could happen. I mean, it is happening. In the sense, you ask it, it produces the code, and you don't look at it. Therefore, you don't know what it's producing. You run it, you don't do the complete testing. So maybe it made the assumptions are completely invalid. You can't check. So there is an interesting image that I saw. Entire mechanism of the AI is like a contraption that is standing on legs. One very, very crucial leg is already knowing the answer. If you know the answer, it's good. But what it is doing though is it's saving you labor. I would do like a program like 1 week. Now I can do a program in 1 day. Literally. That is what it is giving. You don't want to lose that capability. At the same time, you need to understand what you need to know so that you can use it. So the students are going the other extreme, blindly type it and get the answer, cut and paste. Therefore, they never can validate the answer. They never. It's like Googling the. If I give the exam, Googling the answers and typing it like that. This is way better, but still, that kind of thing. The teachers are going to the other extreme. Don't use it. So neither extreme is good. So you need to retool people to think about what exactly we need in this era and how do we go about it, kind of thing. And because of we hire a lot of people, I end up doing quite a number of experiments in this one. And yeah, so that's we need to fear it and respect it, but at the same time, we need to tame it. All three things are right.
So, sir, there's this popular joke online that goes when somebody asks you what makes you human, it's a simple selecting of all the images with traffic lights.
Right.
You understand, right? When
I
enter
know.
some
Captcha,
yeah. So we are living in an era where AI can do anything. It can literally cook also.
Right.
Do you think AI could ever do that? I mean, solving CAPTCHA.
Of course, AI can.
All the human.
No. It already can.
Can. Then why do websites?
So that's the vestigial thing. Now people are worried about how exactly to do it. By the way, there is a interesting story behind the CAPTCHA. This is another kind of a CAPTCHA is it types the words and you look at the words and type it. So this came out of actually Google scanning project. So what happens is Google is scanning the textbooks, right? It is digitizing the text, but text, the old books, etc., it's kind of difficult to look at it. So they came with this ingenious idea. In fact, a professor from CMU, he came with this idea. So he's going to show some letters, and part of the letters is easy type. So if you type the letters, I know that you can type the letters. The rest of the letters is vague letters. I don't have way of testing it. Because you type this letter, I take those letters as accurate letters. And if I assume you are human, so I go and replace it. So I'm getting free manual labor out of all these people that are typing these things. Okay. So that was a story behind the old CAPTCHAs. But I mean, there is most of those kind of things that AI can do now. So they're coming with a different ones. One particular thing they are doing it is this one. Put a tick mark to know the human, right? Anybody can put a tick mark. What's the big deal? What they're tracking is the mouse movement. If you straight go there, that's not a human. A computer finds the most optimal path and take it there, right? Most of the programs. If I can write a browser-based program, but then I basically say identify the tick mark, take the mouse there, that flies there and puts it. That kind of thing that they recognize. Instead, here, how our natural mouse movement, etc., based on that, they can make assessment. Say, hey, you are a human. But they can mimic that, not an issue. So I would be hard pressed to basically say what AI cannot do in the future. Today, I can tell you what are the things. I mean, what ChatGPT cannot do, what this cannot do. For example, up until recently, it couldn't tell how many R's in strawberry. You throw it and say, yes, there are two. Yes, there are two. That's what it keeps saying. That it doesn't count. Now, Lollapalooza, it doesn't count the number of L's, right? Or perform this experiment. Go and type, show me a clock with the face time 12:40. It can never show it. Always 10:10. Always 10:10. Why? Because this is the problem of the data. The entire data that what we basically have fed it, almost every watch or a clock that they show in the images, it's always shows 10:10. Because probably because the hands are beautiful in that one. Somebody decided that, and everybody shows. So for it, a clock means it always shows 10:10, no matter what time it is. So that's the kind of thing that it has. So it has kind of idiosyncrasies. So we do know that is every known chatbot. Chatbot, the way you should think of the LLM, is one particular incarnation today we are using. In a decade hence, we might be using entirely new thing, right? And we don't know what it is yet. So there are right now all the money that we are pumping into ChatGPT, the OpenAI, etc., is going to go to in the same old manner, building better, bigger, all that things. And another dimension it is going is basically wherever AI can't do it, I'm going to write special purpose programs that do it. For example, AI is very bad at because it's a language thing, right? So it is going after patterns. So it is limited in the way it does the mathematics. For example, it constantly, at least early generations, constantly say, show me why 2 plus 2, 3 is 4. It will, yes, 2 plus 3 is 4, it will tell you. It's like the alter that basically says, can I do the tax deduction of this thing? Yes, of course you can. I bought a car. Can I do tax deduction? Of course you can do it. So it kind of tries to pleasing, it kind of rationalize it that way, right? It makes all sorts of mistakes like that. So what they said was, I know some things how to do it through old-fashioned computing, always. So why do I want to use this artificial intelligence to solve regular calculation problems? Or suppose I want to, do a railway booking. I have a web application. I know how to do that in that. So why do I basically have to ask AI to do that? So all I need to do is write a kind of a agent that does it. That means the current generation ChatGPT or LLM problems, they are solving it using these concepts called agents. Each agent does one thing and one thing does well. So when I need to, I call that and that does it. But AI is a general. This is the LLM planning. So the now the AI is growing in the direction of, if I have all these capabilities, how do I, that is capabilities given to me by historically people writing at it, how do I this capability to put together whatever you want? Think about this. Right now, the way that the web applications are built, I ask what do you want, what do you want, what do you want? I prepare a web application. The problem is if you want something else, it's not there. What the AI is saying is, forget about what you want. I'm going to give this vocabulary, so to speak, and afterward, whatever you want, I'll make up a sentence with that. So I give the basic, these bricks. Whatever kind of wall I want, I will build it for you. I'm not going to prefab 10 kinds of wall and say pick one. That is a kind of a capability the applications are evolving towards. That is, AI is becoming a more of an orchestrating than entirely answering all sort of questions. Then few things will happen. 1 plus 1 banana, that kind of problem may go away because you well-known problems, you'll solve it using well-known ways. And any kind of problem, you basically can put guardrails. So the major difference between the first generation AI and the current generation AI is exactly this. The way it is going about, how it is transforming the final answer, how it is getting. They have these guardrails, they have these systems in place. So the fundamental capability may not be increasing, but the way that the capability is demonstrated to you is getting better and better. When you see ChatGPT 4.5, fundamentally not much of a change, but user experience lot better because it feels better because it is putting these things in place.
Right. So like you say, I mean, AI is rapidly advancing. India has traditionally, sorry, excuse me. India has traditionally been a services powerhouse. In your opinion, is this the right time for India to invest in fundamental CS research like the Chinese built DeepSeek, or should we focus on AI applications instead?
So yes, so let me do that. Actually, if you take a look at, I'm a bit of contrarian on this one, but several economists back me up on this. The big thing is we basically take services economy as a major positive thing. Yes, it is a positive thing, but let's face it, it actually has benefited a very small section of the society. And in fact, if you take a look at Indian economy, the income inequality is one of the Gini coefficient is off the charts right now compared to the historical Unitech. And of course, the previous era was let's pull down the rich people also. That's not the answer either. But the fact is that if you take a look at broad-based industries, namely the industries that produce the maximum amount of employment, those are the ones we should be going after, neither of these things. We really should look at the main role of the government is actually looking at the welfare of the large number of the people. If you only focus on highly educated, either IIT educated, REC educated, NET educated, it is not going to provide the trickle-down economics in a country as large as India. It's going to be very difficult. It takes a very, very, very long time for it to trickle down. So we have to focus on the way that broad-based the indicators. That's one thing. And with this particular AI, what we need to solve, by the way, with respect to particular education, I'm a firm believer in when you look at Chinese model, why China is flourishing, etc. It didn't happen because of the investment in the top institutes. the maximum amount of money actually goes to the elementary school education. In fact, if you go back to Europe, the primacy of Europe today, actually in scientific endeavors, it is actually investment in the prenatal vitamins to prenatal kind of activities. Finland was considered the poorest of the nations, for many years, right? It was there are movies that is how people used to eke out living, because it's like a poor and everything bad. But one of the things positive they did was, like, when a child is born, there is a Finnish word. They gave the basket of all the goods and how to the vitamins to food to everything else. That actually made a tremendous amount of difference. Within a generation, these people will get better. They invested, that is a symptom, but they invested quite a bit of money in elementary education. That has they reaped the benefits over the years, right? And in India, I believe Tamil Nadu actually is one of the examples. In 1980s, when I was living in India, Tamil Nadu was actually behind combined Andhra Pradesh in India, most of the metrics, most of the social metrics. Now, it is on par with Kerala in several of the infant mortality to education to women participation workforce to any other metrics. So, if I were basically looking at this thing, I would basically focus on those things. But assuming there is a part of money said you should spend it on computers, what do you spend on, right? I would basically go for where the bang for the buck is, which is applications. I'll tell you why. Chinese DeepSeek, it actually did occur in vacuum. They invested quite a bit of it. We are not going to be able to invest that much of it yet. They will manufacture to everything they do that there. We don't have that. We are not going to suddenly magically going to get there. That's one thing. And any kind of attempt will fall flat. And second thing, I do know, for example, everybody touts India created supercomputers, param, etc. Can you tell me where it is used? You don't even hear of it, right? It's just a bragging right. I mean, the fact is that India loves its heroes, right? And there, if I may go a little bit literary, I will tell you one quote. There is a famous drama writer called Bertolt Brecht, right? German. So in one drama, there are two characters talking. I'm going to translate. I don't know German, but I'm going to quote in English. The first character says, "Pity is the nation that has no heroes." Second person answers, "Pitier is the nation that needs heroes." Why do we need heroes? That's the challenge. We basically look at that, but the thing is, the ecosystem that is what we need to focus on. Ecosystem that could build that, right? The fact is most of those kind of a goals, unless they produce a subsidiary industry, that is not worth it. In computers, there are several different possibilities that they exist. Let's take a look at it, right? Every services industry here is threatened with AI. What is the next game? If you are in a BPO operations, for example, check reconciling, a check comes, you take a look at it and say whether it's in the deposit, BPO operations, gone. Medical transcription, gone. Right? And you can, software industry, the expectation is 30% of the jobs will be the current day existing. They'll be gone. When there are such existential threats, we really should be looking at what is the best way to handle threats, not coming up with another DeepSeek, etc., but to make use of the DeepSeek and actually to do what is the next one. In what way we can basically make a big impact in the way that is we do our own work, what we do, and we can be export-oriented economy, but there is a greater need actually to be able to serve the people of India itself, and how we can serve the people of India in increasing the transparency, in increasing service delivery, increasing the education, increasing the healthcare outcomes, all of those kind of things there. That is, India is rife with the problems, several of which actually can be solved with AI. And if the and India has a really bright people. On average, everywhere has bright people. India has, by the virtue of population, must have, and the joke is, if you say 0.001% in India, that's itself. If you say 1 in a billion, there is at least half a person, fingerprints, that 1 in a billion, there are 5 people, out of which one of them might be in India. That kind of a complex is India problem. So we have this kind of people. So if we turn our attention to that, we actually can solve the problems. And otherwise, what will happen is everybody will chase only one. It's like, trying to become if you want to increase the health of a nation, if you are not going to work about producing one champion, you need to create a systems in place that where broad-based health basically happens. Eventually, that will come and produce a champion. That eventual production champion is a proxy for how your health is, but that should be the goal, right? So all of these kind of trophies that happen because of many other things happen. The core metrics that we should be looking at is not whether India can produce another DeepSeek, but the metric that is having basically like the every college students that is coming out, does he have the capability to use AI, kind of thing. That actually will change the game. Not if you were to focus on a few things. I'm saying this as a person who came out of IIT, but I do believe that money is better spent in spreading it out across the nation starting with the prenatal to elementary to upwards.
So do you think the services sector, IT sector right now, which are mostly back-end operations for multinationals, are they all threatened?
So,
and what could be done? I mean, that would mean a loss of employment. A lot of people will lose.
Right. The one thing is that is from knowing. So in 2000, I've seen COBOL and I've seen all these things, right? Usually, what happens is the industries move at very slow pace, right? I mean, very funniest thing is that is you could be using the phone effectively to conduct all your businesses, but for the business to take the phone adoption within its own processes, it probably will take a decade or two, right? Because their priorities are different. Unless they are threatened with the loss of money, there are two things that they respond to: fear and greed, right? Only two things. If somebody else does it and is doing disrupting, they will adopt it. Otherwise, they won't, right? So in some senses, there is quite a bit of time for them to catch up. I'll give you one very interesting thing. That is, you all talk about computers, how internet and everything that, right? A decade back, I went to I'm not going to name it, but you can guess it, second largest food distribution company that is, they supply from farmers to markets where if McDonald's wants to buy it, it buys from them. Now these meat patties, etc. What was it operating on? It was operating on DOS computers. They had DOS. That is the DOS which was not being used since 1993, 94, whatever. That is what in 2010, 2020, 2012, 2013, 2015, they were using it. They wanted to move to Windows. That was it. What were they operating on? All these people are truckers. They basically come on trucks and they basically wanted to move Windows and use a mobile iPad kind of a situation where they go and take the orders, verify the orders, that kind of business. That's what they wanted to do. So if there are industries that basically manage to survive without changing for 20-25 years and highly profitable, I would assume there would be business for that. Except the growth doesn't come from there. Growth has to come from elsewhere. And when I visit HCL, etc., I do know that is most of the things technologically, in fact, India growth, this is the interesting fact. Most of the work done in the back office is usually a decade-old technology or older technology. India doesn't usually get to work on very new technology. For example, if you want to do COBOL-based programming and maintenance, they outsource it to India. Because their young people are not interested and the older people are dying off. So what do you do? In fact, the previous CEO of HCL, in fact, when he went to Vineet Nair, when he went to US, he actually was quoted saying, look, why do you want to solve these boring problems? Why do you want to solve these old problems? Anyway, you're not getting the students. Give it to us. For India, this is a good one because the guys are getting paid well, so they like it. So there is a lot of hue and cry saying, you think that the Indians want to do boring work? Like what the guy meant was, we need the money. You don't want to do it. We don't care. I mean, how the work is as long as you get good money. So give us the money and give us the work. So that way there will be enough amount of work that we'll have. But the thing is that is export oriented. The right way to think about is how do we serve the local needs, right? That we need to be able to leapfrog. Just the way that we have opportunity to leapfrog over like a traditional most to directly to solar, directly to this, etc. growth, we can actually do it a more sustainable, better way. And if you were to think, for example, take a look at innovations here from Flipkart to Ola to things. All this work is magical to me. I mean, it's happening here, serving the people here. And any of these IT companies, when they go out there, they don't do this work, by the way, right? Because they won't let you do that work. Because they want to do that work there. The only place where Indians can be really highly innovative is serving the Indian market.
Right? But unfortunately, particularly going back to the IT sector, what is the main reason that we are only into back end operations, maintenance, and all? Why is there no innovation? You have been in US for so long. What is the difference between there and here? Is it the quality of education that we impart, or is it because of other reasons?
So, so this is a multiple dimensions are there to this problem. I also thought about this one because for first like decade and a half, decade or so, I worked exclusively with the US, that is Bell Labs. Some of the smartest people, etc. Completely, like it has 5,000 PhDs. It had 2-3 Nobel Prizes. The transistor was invented there. Unix was invented there. C programming, everything came out of there. That kind of place. Then I come to India. It was a bit of a shock to me, right? Then I adapted to India. I eventually, right? So I kept thinking that the same people, I take them out of here and put them in Google, they're effective. The same people, I take them out of here and put it here, they're ineffective. So it's not about intelligence, not intelligence. We need to talk in terms of the effectiveness. Capability is innate, that is internal. What does it mean if you're capable? I can jump 100 feet. How does it matter? What is that is, can you show it to me? That is, show it to me in the context when I need it, kind of thing. So the effectiveness is what we need to look at. So when you look at the effectiveness of the people, I see there are several different factors that are making the people effective there. We don't think them being related to each other, but everything is related. For example, take a look at Bangalore. That is roughly 20% of the productive time of a Bangalorean is spent in traffic. Straight away, 20% of GDP gone. Whatever, not GDP, that is the whatever the productive time and whatever the economic output is gone. 20%, right? So how can you make up 20%? Is like a major deal. It's like equivalent of having 20% of people join the workforce, right? That kind of thing. So you take a look at every other factor of that. You see these inefficiencies add up. In particular, how I think that is one big aspect. The second thing, when you come to the education, that is a different problem again. So I'll give you an example of that thing. So we conducted interviews for 5,000, 2,000 people, or some odd number. I don't remember exactly, but it's thousands of people in Punjab University. So because I cannot grade that many papers. It has to be multiple choice. I'm not there physically. Therefore, it is an open book. I can't, I don't know exactly how they're taking, so it's an open book. And finally, it's also multiple choice, open book. And while I can restrict the time, half an hour, whatever it is, we made it, within a week, we submit to it. Open book, unlimited time, multiple choice. 60% is the cutoff. Can you guess me what percentage people passed?
Should be 100%.
Since you asked.
Okay, 4 years back. Not now. No, 3.5 years back. Since I asked what is the thing.
Must be, say, 20 or something.
20%. Anybody else? So what we have here is something called anchoring effect. What happens is, if he gets a high number, he would adjust his number slightly higher. he may have thought 10%. You said 100, right? So in any case, it was 11 people passed out of 2,000 or so. The thing was, they were relying on Google. I made the questions non-Googleable. So the only way to answer the question is experiment. They're too lazy to experiment. They were not taught to experiment. And therefore, the basic. Now I give the same exam. What percentage do you think pass?
I think the proportion could be more.
Around 90%. Anybody who knows ChatGPT, go and type it, ChatGPT does it, right? The difference kind of thing that happens. But fundamentally, that is what is happening is that people have not learned to the kind of skills that the businesses look for, the colleges are not teaching. What do we look for? Simply to be effective. That means to be able to work hard, to come on time, general standard discipline things. In the college, somehow they think if I'm good at my subject, good enough. No. I want you to be effective. Good at the subject, how does it matter to me? Your knowledge is completely immaterial to me. whether your output is what material to me. So show me the output. That means being able to work with people, being able to communicate. All of those kind of skills are highly valued, and they are taught from the beginning in the US. When you take a look at any college essay, unlike here, there is no entrance exam, right? So in the statement of purpose, statement of objective statement, that is, you really need to put what is the kind of a organizational community event you participated in, how we work with the people, and how you are dealing with people. That is the kind of thing they're asking for there. Here, nothing, doesn't matter. In fact, it's a dog eat dog world. It's competition. It's not never cooperation.
So the culture itself, our culture itself, doesn't contribute to innovation.
No, it does contribute to innovation. Innovation of a different kind, and unfortunately, that innovation those days are limited. There is an interesting book called No Full Stops in India, I think. In that, he talks about Mark Tully. I'm the journalist. BBC. He talks about how India, why did some industries develop, like jewelry manufacturing, software? Because historically they were considered solitary activities. You don't depend on the state that much, firstly. You don't, it's a factory, for example, you depend on the state quite a bit. So here you don't. And second thing is, if you are good, you are able to produce good, right? So the software industry in the beginning, it was that small group. Now, by and large, it's a large group of people are able to be producing the results. And that is a bit of a challenge for a lot of, it is something that the people learn when they grow here. So one nice positive aspect is this. Quite a number of Indians are exposed to the West, working in the West. They are bringing those habits to India. Project planning, the skills that is which we historically neglected in preference to intelligence, smartness, etc. Right? We always prized the innovativeness in that way. But balanced innovation basically happens in all of these kind of dimensions, which people are learning. That's one thing. The second thing is, we also place a lot of emphasis on Zugaad, which is an extremely negative trait. What it means is, we don't look for systemic answers. We look at point solutions. That pervades pretty much. If I were to say one problem that basically besets the entire organization to country as a whole, it is that, and that alone. The reason is, suppose there is a problem with the law and order problem. We don't ask the law and order to change. We ask for instant justice to that person. And therefore, we do not have vested interest in making systems work or making institutions work. We only care about outcome that matters to us. So if we only focus on that, we vote based on that, social media revolutions based on that, everything basically based on just that. We want a one Nirbhaya case, we take only one. We don't really look at a systemic problem of how the justice is delayed and how basically historically, like again, another 20% GDP thing, kind of thing, which is any kind of a land in dispute becomes unproductive. And the land in dispute, 30 years, 40 years. There have been cases in Guntur that have been there since I was born. I mean, how will that ever be productive, right? Therefore, that the people don't go to court. People don't. Therefore, they settle outside. So law and order breaks down. And what is the purpose of state if it is not for this, right? So I have a feeling that we are trying to bury the fundamental problems. We are trying to somehow look for short circuit. Can I educate these people better somehow so that they can produce things better? Not so. It is the whole bunch of other things need to come together. There is a very interesting podcast / YouTube series and university called MRU, Marginal Revolution University. I don't know how many of you heard of it. It's one of the most fantastic resources if you want to learn about economics or any economics in particular. You go there, you listen directly from Nobel Prize winning economists before they won the Nobel Prize, actually. That means it's that they identify the best of the minds. So one particular thing that struck me with me was this person, his family is into coffee beans production. He went to Australia, learned how to make coffee, and he wanted to establish a coffee shop. So he said, I will do it according to the book. No bribes, no nothing. I will do exactly what the rule says. But the problem is, nobody could interpret the rules at all because the rules are so vague and sufficiently opaque and sufficiently contradictory. He didn't know. He basically took him 2 years to open up. Did you know that he actually had to get radiation permit to actually operate a espresso machine? I had no idea. I mean, these are the kind of complexities we are talking, right? So, I mean, there are no, that is like what they call this idiom after lipstick and a pig kind of thing. Yes, there is a part of the society that will progress it no matter what I say, that will be world class and it will progress, will produce billionaires. But when I take a look at, when I travel to various countries, etc., when I take a look at those countries, the long lasting thing can only happen when there is a growth is organic and actually can come from bottom up. That actually majority of the people, if they are vested in the governance, if they are vested in the institution, if they are vested in democracy, then only we'll have all these things sustained. Otherwise, you will have this kind of a social political unrest that is threatening to businesses. I mean, if I were a businessman, I should be worried about that. If a revolution happens, I would be against the war. So it's in my vested interest to basically look for certain kind of how the opportunity is extended to everybody. So I don't know. I think I went off on a slight tangent,
No,
but
you are
nevertheless,
right on the point.
right.
Talk about your schools, right? The different schools that you studied. One, you said that it was boring. And you spoke about the residential schools that you were part of later. What was the difference, the nature of the teachers or the peer group?
Yes. Okay. Coming to schooling, right? So
Now they want to introduce AI in schools also.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is it's always done with the good intentions. Like there is, I kind of see the major disconnect between the policymakers who actually have the best of the interests, brightest of the minds. I talk to them and I'm amazed at their brilliance, right? But the fact is, when they go onto the ground, when it ends up getting implemented, it gets diluted so much that it's unbelievable. I mean, it kind of looks like a problem eventually. So coming back to the schools, right? So I must say that I'm a beneficiary of the munificence of the Indian state. I studied in my village up until 7th grade. And then I got into Tadikonda, which is a residential school. Then I had, that was 100% scholarship, nothing out of my pocket. And then APR, including clothes, soap, everything. Then APRJC, same deal. Then I got NTSC, NCRT scholarship, IIT. So I had the privilege of going to best of these schools. For the last 4 or 5 years, ever since before pandemic, I've been working with Indian schools. There is an organization foundation of which I'm a quote unquote president of, but we work with residential schools across the states. I routinely travel to various schools. In fact, the college I was quoting was, I didn't attend the college. I went to give a talk there to spend some time. Elementary school as well as engineering college. I spent time with elementary school students as well as engineering college students. So if you ask me about the kind of this thing, etc., right? And there is a bit of a crisis that is going on even in the West and a lot of things. What happened is historically, we have had really good teachers. That was largely because lack of opportunities outside of education sector. Therefore, teacher profession was a good profession, good job, nice holidays, well-paying job in a village, which basically covers all the expenses. Therefore, you could do that. And your kids also could study. You could get them educated. And the second reason is women. If an educated woman was there, the only way the most likeliest job is actually a teacher. Respectable, you could do it at your own pace and good money. So highly qualified women, these women that should belong to boardrooms, they were teaching. Therefore, the quality of the teachers were very high. And suddenly now we basically have the kind of a teachers that is, I have a friend, Ramakrishna, he was the education secretary. When he was the secretary, he was telling first question, I had to hire the elementary school teachers, Telugu teachers, recite one poem. Everybody would come and say, Uppu Kappu Rambu. This kind, then they would made a rule, accept that. Most people say they don't know the poem also like that because that's the only poem they remember. It is that kind of a thing. So we basically have this future, the progressive economic engine, namely the people. We are giving them the kind of a teachers that basically, which we shouldn't be trusting. The same thing happened in the US also, by the way. It's not, India is not a problem. US is a major problem. That is the women force, they basically entered the workforce, they basically are in the boardrooms where they rightfully belong. And except that is the elementary schools, etc., the teachers are not highly qualified as they used to be. So there is a lot of challenge that is going on there also. So increased salaries or privatized education. So the movement is privatized education. who basically gets cut up in thing? Poor people, because they can't pay for the education, government schools, and especially when the rich people don't go to the government schools, it becomes even worse. When the village head doesn't send his kid to the village school, the village school is going to go down. When the teacher doesn't live in the village, that village school goes down. That's what has happened. And if I go to the schools, when we were there in Tadikonda, the teachers lived in the school because it's a residential school, right? That is simultaneously we have this kind of a conflict, that is namely, that is on one end we are spending too much money, and then we are spending too little money. But when you measure, that is, when you look at the effectiveness of the money, etc., we when we compare with China, we should be spending lot more, 10 times more money in education, but we are not spending that money. On the other hand, when you take a look at outcomes, that is, we are spending way too many teachers, way too much of budget is going into that without result.
Sir, you have successfully built and been a part of many startups with good exit. What advice would you give to AI entrepreneurs who are, looking to enter the healthcare and the biotech sectors?
Okay. So healthcare is somewhat an easier answer. Biotech is a more complex answer. So actually, interestingly, most of these kind of fundamental things, right, have not really changed that much. That is, the biggest thing is that is understanding the customer, understanding the problem, understanding what you're offering to the world. That is the most critical thing that doesn't. Oftentimes, what happens is, that is, if I'm a good researcher, I say, I'm a good researcher. Somebody is exploiting me. Why don't I start a company? What for? What are you solving? Right? That is the interesting thing is, ultimately the customer, the whole solution guy, doesn't care whether you're using AI or not. It doesn't matter. AI should be your weapon to solve it cheaper, better, faster, whatever it is. But so you take any problem, you say, today this is the kind of money that is being spent. Today this is the kind of wastage that is happening. I will tell you how to reduce the wastage. Or the simplest sell you can ever make is, you go to a person and say, I'll make you money, or I'll save you money. Only one of the two things, right? If you are, I'll make you better, I'm healthier, younger, whatever it is, right? So figure out exactly what you are able to offer, right? When I talk to a lot of young entrepreneurs, right, they start from, this is what we can do. How does it matter to me what you can do? Tell me what you are giving me. Assume whoever it is, I am me. Tell me what you are giving me, right? So they put the technology before the thing. Having seen the technology from the beginning to this thing, technology is always secondary, third, it doesn't even matter. I can tell you some places, right, where they say AI, they don't even use AI, they use something else. Eventually they replace the AI. But how do they basically got the customer? The AI would be like 10% of the solution, but they call it AI. That's okay. In healthcare, for example, there is unfortunately, that's a really large and complex problem. In India, if you take a look at it, large number of bankruptcies are due to healthcare problem today, healthcare costs. In the US, 20% of GDP goes into healthcare. It's a really large thing. Unfortunately, whatever for the reasons, obviously, it is government also has a lot of say in it. Private sector basically ends into it. There are many different factors. So it's rife with inefficiencies. You identify an area of inefficiency, you solve an area of inefficiency. It can save money or produce better outcomes. And except some of the challenges, market doesn't always accept the solutions because of various reasons. For example, if you say that I'm going to save you money, quite a bit of it, and we have a lot of sentimental things, right? For example, that is, this is a very interesting quiz question. Up until I don't remember the year, let's say 1932 randomly. Up until 1932, majority of the people in the US were dying of this cause. After that, not even 1% died of this cause. What was the cause?
AIDS?
1930s.
Oh, 1930s. Sorry.
32 or something. Nobody can guess. You know what it was? Old age.
Oh.
Until 1930s, you are legally allowed to write the cause of death, old age. After that, no. You died of heart attack, you died of stroke, you died of something else. You could be 120 and you drop dead. Nobody writes old age. He died of a cardiac arrest or something like that. What it essentially is, a medical profession itself, the way that is historical ethics and everything was formed, we basically have not accepted dignified death concept. And historically, India has that tradition. Mind you, like Dhritarashtra walked off into the forest and voluntarily died. Many kind of traditional societies understand the need for, that is, the replenishing of the blood, so to speak, and how people in the old age gracefully exiting into the sunset. In fact, certain cultures make a ritual out of it, like in the countries like Ethiopia, etc., small nation. But we currently are exactly going the Western way. That is, this person probably would have very low quality of life. All his life he would have saved his money, maybe 1 lakh, 2 lakh rupees, would have scrimped and saved or whatever it is. In the last 15 days of his life, it will go into healthcare. You may come up with a solution, but it is going against the current ethos and current things. There is no way you can hit that thing. You cannot say that. Therefore, you need to, within the constraint of socio-economic and political and cultural kind of a thing, that you need to find your solution. And that can uniquely come from only from here. You cannot import it from the West. That is why healthcare, in particular, here will thrive if we done properly. There are healthcare startups, fantastic, but it has to be contextualized locally, address the local problems. The US problems, US solutions won't work. The next one, biotech, very complex. You are competing with the best minds in the West. For example, in our company, 30% are PhDs in biology. It's not computer science problem, it's biology. And then we need to add computer science to that. So unless you know what you're doing there, it's a tough climb, right? So it's a long haul. It takes like to produce kind of results, it takes a really long time. So, I mean, if somebody is going into that, presumably they did all that homework. So then it's more power to them. But healthcare, many inefficiencies.
One more thing I always wanted to ask: how difficult is it to float a startup here in India, vis-a-vis America? I mean, in America, you read stories about students dropping out of college and starting a company from a garage. You don't hear such stories here.
Right. So, fortunately, I never started a company here. In the sense, I had somebody else start it. We acquired it in the US. I don't deal with the legal matters, fortunately. But from whatever I hear, it's really complex. Like, for example, I remember the case that is when we were bringing laptops to India to work. I was surprised to find people could not take laptops home in Bangalore. We had an office in Bangalore because it was export zone, SEZ or whatever. So in the office they could work. They can't take the laptop home. So they had to stay in the office if they had to work. Otherwise they couldn't. I mean, it boggled my mind. There are many other things, that is, you cannot close down a company easily. It's a whole bunch of process. You have to keep it. Even after our company was acquired by HCL, we had to keep the entity open for a long time for some kind of vague rules and regulations. And out there, it's trivial. It is trivial as go online, submit it, you have a company name. You know what is more complicated? Getting a domain name. And filing paperwork. If you don't have much, basically, if I use my last name, there is a kind of company. I don't even need to do anything. I don't need to file also. File as in, I don't need to file certain paperwork. If I'm filing the paperwork, etc., if I'm filing taxes, if I don't have much income, I can fill it online. If I have income, usually it takes a little bit of effort, but that there is the tax filing is there. But hiring and firing and rules and regulations, it's quite simple there. So,
and what about the approvals?
What approvals?
I mean, here, if you want to start a company, I don't know exactly. It depends on the nature of the company and sector also.
Right.
But the government, they will have to go to the government, get certain approval, this, that.
I mean, to tell you, in the US, we never had to get any approvals. Nobody is right. Only thing basically I have to do is the taxes. Taxes, make sure that all the receipts and everything. Taxes is the main thing, right? And we need to run payroll. That is basically, most of these kind of services, they're outsourced to people. For example, payroll, we don't have to do it. There's a company that does it. We transfer the money, and healthcare, we don't have to do it. The company does it. You just basically all that, there is a I forget some kind of staff, some company, admin staff, I think that was the name of the company we dealt with. We transfer every month some money that goes into salary, that pays the healthcare, that goes into 401k, nothing. We just don't have to worry anything about it. We just make money. That's our business. That is, no approvals needed, nothing. None of those kind of things are applied to. In such small companies, that's even less. It's not like we're exporting to Iran. I mean, there are some export regulations are there. So otherwise, nothing really. So, I mean, you could spend months without even thinking about what a permit or approval. I mean, I never had to have an approval or a permit or any such thing.
Here they are now,
Especially software,
especially so.
right? Another thing, only thing I need to worry about is usually homeowners association, which is not government. Because if I were running my own business here, if too many people are coming home and etc., they say, hey, this is not legally zoned for commercial enterprise. What you're running is a commercial enterprise, get out. They could say that. So we have to worry more about landlords than actually the government. That is the main thing. So if I were running other business, say like a restaurant, right? I have to worry about health inspection, a whole bunch of permits, etc. In fact, they complain historically compared to what they actually are fulfilling a lot more of paperwork down there. In the sense, they need to get a health certificate, they need to get environment certificate, they need to get other, etc. Half a dozen kind of things. Usually the physical businesses, right? Otherwise, we don't. Yes, we have to be WASHA compliant. We have to have a standard, like, if you are hiring foreigners, there is a kind of notice board. We need to put up our job so that the local guys actually can find out and if they can apply. And some sexual harassment kind of things that we need to have standard policies, etc. A bunch of things that are there, right? And more than them, we actually who need. If I'm doing a business with a large company, like we were doing a business with one of the large pharma companies, they wanted to know all our policies regarding environmental policy, gender discrimination policy, opportunity policy, all of those kind of things that we have to give in writing how our policies are. It's not that we need to get a certificate, we just need to give it to them. Some companies do insist, that is, we need to get those certificates. That means they're third-party people. You go to them and you get certificate. You're not dealing with the government. For example, Dun & Bradstreet, you need to get a number. You go to them, you pay them money, they come, audit, do whatever thing, and they give you a number. Like that. There are a few things
But
like
from
that.
your acquaintances here, or from your friend circles here,
Right.
how difficult is it to do business here? Because the government has come up with ease of doing business for the last so many years now.
I
Has
mean,
it all worked or has it changed?
it's still, from what I understand, it's quite difficult. For example, our partner here, every month he has to talk to the auditor. Ever so often he talks to the legal person. Quite a number of things we need to do. It does occupy mental space, let me put that way. I don't know about how onerous it is compared to before. I mean, I come from the era in India at the time, there were manufacturing quotas. If you are allowed to manufacture only 10 fans a month, you can't manufacture 11th fan, only 10. That was the era I came from. So compared to that, whole lot better. But on the other hand, when I compare to the West, I mean, for example, the every month GST kind of a deal, we don't have to do that there. Our things are much simpler. Annually file it. Here, I mean, the credits, GST credits, etc. All the thing, they're quite complicated, etc. And things are somewhat relatively straightforward there. And they get you at taxes, but other than that, somewhat of a laxer rules.
And how is the interface like with policymakers?
Okay. As a small company, we never deal with the policymakers. Usually.
Yes, you would have knowledge of policy.
Yes, I say that. I would say that in a large company, usually, it's a very organized incentivization scheme. What it means is usually that is they have lobbyists. One of the biggest, I was in AT&T, they were one of the biggest lobbyists. They made a mistake of not spending enough money, that's why it was broken up. So what happens is that is, whatever you want to, you can find enough number of people siding with you. You just need to find those people in Congress and make sure that they are on your side and make them happy so they fight on your behalf. So how do you do that? You can only give so much. Normally, amount of money individual can give to a person, there is limit. $1,000 plate, you can only give $1,000. Beyond that, you can't. However, ever since this there is a different rule, that is where the corporates also are people kind of thing, as free speech is concerned. So they have a loophole. That is, I don't have to give the money to the candidate. Instead, I can give it to a committee that promotes a cause, which may be exactly that candidate, whatever the candidate is talking about. If the candidate is talking about we have to dig this canal, I say promotion of the canal conference, I'll give $1 million. No problem. I can only give $1,000 to them, I can give $1 million. Only rule is they are not supposed to coordinate. But that rule is so weak. What does coordination mean? You can basically publish the paper, they can read it, they can publish the paper, you can adapt it. Arm's length transaction can happen. So what it has happened is, that means that is, it's actually quite cheap to buy policymaker there compared to here. On average, as I understand it, if you want to get a MLA on here, it costs a few crores of rupees. You can get a policymaker on your side for a few tens of thousands there.
So there is a degree of difference, but not of kind.
Well, it is not. No, there are two things that has happened. Okay, this is we are going to an very interesting area. There is a book called The Gilded Age in China. It is written by, it's a Pulitzer Prize finalist or something like that, a professor from University of Michigan. She talks about why did China progress despite bribery. Okay, and there are several interesting facts about it. Firstly, we always equate all bribes as the same. No, some bribes are good, some bribes are bad. For example, the bribes that essentially grease the wheel to make the bureaucracy and make it work faster, good. Certain bribes that basically go to, like, say, plundering the earth, like mining kind of, like rent seeking kind of thing, bad. So if this kind of bribery is happening, usually that increases the efficiency at the cost of course, instead of somebody winning, you won, but overall economic growth is happening. Other way, no, the economy is happening in some other country, it's exported outside. So the difference in the bribery, that part. Similarly here, right, the biggest challenge in bribery is, I come from a village, right? So for us, we have to go and to get a signature to Tahsildar, we need to bribe somebody. Except the problem, we don't know who to bribe. It is random, I can say, bribe me, I'll do the work. I have no idea who to bribe. First challenge. So there is this middleman that come and say, I know exactly who to bribe. Do I trust the guy? Do I get a receipt? Do I get a guarantee? Absolutely not. No. So the best method is actually publish a paper saying this is the amount of bribery. Instead of calling it bribe, you basically call it donation, you call it a fee. Right? You call it a fee. And that means you privatize the government, you call it a fee. So in some senses there, a lot of things are reasonably standard. So if I'm lobbying, I exactly know where I stand. I'm giving you this much money, I expect. If the other person is getting this, so barring some kind of a bidding war, I know exactly where I stand. In a lot of ways, that is a kind of a comfortable situation. I mean, I bet many of the people want to basically offer bribe and get their work done, except most of the people don't know how to offer bribes. Right? The people who know how to, they become billionaires or millionaires. I don't know. I may be slandering people, but it is, I was told. But the fact is that I'm all for creating equitable society, equality of opportunity. So publish it, make it standard. In the West, it's very well published. If I want to basically get into the good books of, you raise $1 million, you get an ambassadorship. It's a rule. Ambassadorship are political appointees. You raise $1 million to the president. If you choose the losing side, too bad. So I do know people, husband donates to this, wife donates to that. Right? So policy making, unfortunately, because you can, any policy, you can always justify opposite policy. You want to regulate AI? I can give you causes. You don't want to regulate AI? I give you causes. You just need to emphasize that one. So usually what happens is you go and you fund, you give the think tank people write a position paper, and your guys basically come and borrow the position paper and make it a part of legislation. So if you are Republican, this heritage think tank. And if you're a Democrat, I believe there are, I don't remember exactly what, there are a few bunch of other think tanks. They put out these white papers which enter the economy. So while I only know one lobbyist that actually, friend that has done the lobbying, and for in the state of Illinois. It's a pity he went to jail, but basically the thing is, as they say, none of this is illegal. Usually what happens, illegality is when you cover up. As very well know in the newspaper business, it's not the crime is not what the crime is. Cover up is the crime. When you lie, that becomes the crime. Right? That is AI. The Biden government, previous government was, I would say, kind of antagonistic towards the tech business. I wouldn't say all tech business, the kind of a heavily bro culture tech business. And the current government is very much in cahoots with that. Therefore, but there is, all the tech people are not of the same opinion either. There are a whole bunch of people that are saying, leave it, let it be. We know what happens, so we know we'll take care of it. And a bunch of people saying that is, let's put the restrictions. From what I understand, there are going to be a lot less restrictions because firstly, there are not enough people to impose the restrictions for all the those anyway. So that's what I kind of think that's happening.
ChatGPT 4.5 is better than others because it has guardrails to prevent.
Not only guardrails, the enhancements and such as guardrails. That means they basically, so the rough edges they're smoothing out as opposed to increase the core capability. Core capability, from what I understand, it has not increased the way we thought it would. 3 to 4, tremendous advancement. But 4 to 4.5, not so. It's only cleaner, neater in some ways. That one.
We hear about AGI. What is it and how close are we?
Right. Very pertinent question. AGI stands for Artificial General Intelligence. Okay. The other thing is Artificial Specific Intelligence, etc. They call it, right? ASI. The thing with one way to think about is, think about what AI so far has been doing before ChatGPT came. Recognizing photos, right? Or decoding the songs and converting the speech to text. All of those things, if you think about it, a 5-year-old can do it. Sort of, except he doesn't do it as fast as a machine, but capabilities of what a 5-year-old kid is. But with LLM, what you are trying to do is, you are trying to up the level of education. 5-year-old, 10th grade, college graduate, like that. So eventually the idea is that is artificial general intelligence not only understands like a human, but understands like a human, that is highly educated human, highly knowledgeable human. That is the kind of a thing that people are talking about, artificial general intelligence. Nothing specific. On the other hand, ASI, it focuses on, he may be complete, the total idiot in every other area, but one particular area is super duper knowledgeable. That means that is, you can have, it's like a PhD student, PhD in biotechnology, but doesn't know how to screw the light bulb. That kind of a thing that is artificial. The special one is easier to do in some senses because you are focusing on the narrow spectrum of the things and narrow ways of doing it. You don't have to care about a lot of other things. You only have to focus only about this one. For example, this is even predates by the LLMs, large language model. It's not nothing to language, it predates that also. For example, we develop these AI models that is given any material. For example, some liquid, let us say. When what temperature does it freeze? You don't have to go to the lab. The model predicts it. Or what temperature it boils? Or what is the viscosity? How does it react with this one? How much it yields? None of these things which you traditionally do in the lab, in none of these things, you don't have to enter the lab. The model predicts it to very good accuracy. Right? So those are, obviously it can't write a poem, it can't write a haiku, but think about this. Why would you want to write a haiku? Business doesn't really care for haikus, right? Unless you're publishing haiku business, right? So that is this kind of a special thing, special purpose models is what the focus was on. Right? Think about, other way to think about is chips, right? You have a general program. Whatever you want to, you can write in Java or whatever language. But if you want something repeatedly fast, if you want to do it fast and better, usually what you do is you come up with a special purpose chip that does only that and nothing else. For example, say in your cell phone, there is a chip that does the 5G communication. A lot of it happens in software, by the way, getting signal cleaning. But that all is happening in the silicon. It doesn't change the standard thing. So it's a very, very special purpose chip that does only the task, usually efficiently. But it doesn't do anything else. So those kind of things, there is a precedence for us to do it, and there is a need for us to do it. And these are the ones that are hard coded, so to speak. Now, one of the things that is coming up with is, if LLM, is it becoming powerful enough as like a AGI kind of a level enough? There, I don't need a special anything. It can become that. It's like this, right? If you see comic books, you have Superman and you have Flash. Flash can run fast. Superman also can run fast. Superman can do 10 other things. You don't need Flash, right? That kind of thing. But in theory, what happens is a Flash kind of a thing, you may be able to produce a lot easy than a Superman kind of a thing. Right now, are the chat GPTs, etc., are they Superman? Or are we better off producing things like a Flash, things like one of a kind of thing, that brain bit kind of thing? Every superpower, one superpower. We don't know yet. And people used to think ASI is the way to go because we can do it, we need it now. But once the LLM came, people are rethinking it a little bit. Maybe if I teach LLM how to actually mimic that, maybe it will do that. There is one physicist, he's a Nobel Prize winner physicist. He was saying, 10 people in the world understand me. And now ChatGPT. Scary, right? So, but one thing is, like you said, who knows whether it understands or not? It's just making the noises that it understands, right? But then the other argument is, why do we care whether it understands or not? As long as it makes the noises that I want it to make.
This AGI, I mean, you hear this on social media. There's some say AGI can solve the problem of immortality. It can
Mortality?
Immortality can AGI or super intelligence. I mean, so bunk it out for the next few years, assuming you have the money, and does that make any sense?
Yeah, no. I'll tell you why it doesn't make sense yet. So we're switching to biology a little bit. So the biggest quest in biology is what is known as digital twin. For example, you come to me with a disease. I give you medicine, and whether it works or not, I don't know. I test it, and you come back later. It's empirical, not. I tried it 100 people. It may or may not work for you, but it's like same clothes, everybody same size stitching for everybody kind of a thing. Everybody's body is different. Everybody's DNA is different. Everybody's circumstances are different. So why are we giving the same medicine to everybody? First question, right? So the idea is, if only I know how it behaves through stimulation. That means, suppose I measure you. Already we can measure your DNA. Suppose I measure all properties of you and put into a computer somehow. And then instead of giving the medicine to real person, I give the medicine to the computer, whatever, digital twin. Let us see what happens. If he's getting better, I'll give it to you. If he's not getting better, I won't. I can even do the surgery on that. I can figure out how exactly to do it. I can try 10 times, see which angle, which way a nice cut basically works best, and I can do that. That is what they're after. Except that is, I will tell you how complicated it is. How complicated it is. We actually work in molecular dynamics. Molecular dynamics means how do molecules move, right? So our particular quest, we were working with one pharma company, was this one. There is a barrier between the brain and blood. That is, if you get virus, your brain doesn't get it because there is a barrier that stops. So sometimes you have to give the medicines to brain. So you need to understand how certain viruses pass through. How do these viruses pass through? What is the mechanism? So how is this molecule penetrating the thing? So that means you need to look at the molecule, how it is moving, let us say like, in a few milliseconds. To do the computation of how a molecule moves, just one molecule moves, in a few milliseconds, it would take 4 computers in my lab at close to 1 week. In 1 week, I can predict how much few milliseconds of movement. How many different things are in the body? How can we even hope to compute it? We don't even know. So it is kind of difficult. I mean, everything has. I mean, we are such a holistic being. We do certain thing. or some other thing gets affected. I mean, we don't, our human body is such a wondrous thing. We don't know how it works. Even now, it is, that's why I was talking about it's being purely empirical science. That is, we don't know how Tylenol works. We have an idea. We kind of have an empirical evidence that it works that way, but we don't have an objective proof that actually it works that way. The mechanism of action is usually like a Karl Popper instance, that it is like it can be falsified data. But it's useful, it's proven to be useful, therefore we use it. We developed a certain scientific approval processes that will catch most number of errors, but that is also most of the people who do not understand science, they insist on categorical answers, right? They don't understand statistical nature of the science. They don't understand, like if a vaccine, for example, is 99.9% effective, that means in India, that means, what is 99.9%? That is 0.1%. That is big. That's big. I can't repeat it. That's the population of several countries, like that. So that means for them it doesn't work. Certain number of them get adverse reaction. Possible, right? So then people say, no, it doesn't work. It's, look at this guy. I know this guy. That guy, it happened. Yes, it could happen. That's exactly what it is saying. There's a possibility that it could happen. Nothing is foolproof 100%. But you need to weigh these kind of things against other kind of risks, right? So there is that kind of a knowledge is something that is people don't have, considering it's a science broadcast. I think that is people for the scientific knowledge, what the scientific nature of the science means, people misunderstand these kind of concepts a bit.
One last question. A couple. What would you tell the students or the universities? How should they, if everybody is after computer science, as you know, particularly in the Telugu states now, still there is that American dream, So should they be continuing with the same course, or should they, what is their future? The courses need to be changed, because coding may no longer be possible. If AI can do it, what is the point in studying it? That is another question.
Yeah.
So how should they tweak their courses and subjects?
Right. Very interesting question, and one of the most useful questions, truly, right? Because that's very genuine. The fact is, in a lot of ways, computer science by itself is useless, right? By itself. If you, as a PhD in computer science, what could I do? I could work on computers. In the sense that is, I am trained to only serve computer science people, right? That is not highly useful. Really useful is when I go and look at other productive industries, from agriculture to zoology, whatever it is, A to Z. How can I make computers help them? That's what I understand. So over the time, what has happened is, that is, I come with a pure knowledge of computers, how to make it computers, but I don't know what banking is. I don't know what journalism. I don't know whatever it is. So I have to depend on you to explain to me so that I can put in the computer. Highly inefficient mechanism of doing it, firstly. And second, a lot of it is lost in translation. That's why people, blame the computer. It's not the computer, it's the program. The guy didn't understand what you want, so he wrote it. He's not your expert in your field. Therefore, what does he know about editorial process to implement editorial process? So you can never predict that kind of thing. So that is going to be pervasive, especially they're going to be pervasive throughout. So especially as programming is becoming easier and easier. So if I may, let us say, I'll give you the case. Recently, Ramakrishna Rao, he was looking at NPS scheme. He wanted to create a program. Usually what happens, you talk to a guy, here is a paper, and write a program that implements the paper. The guy doesn't know economics at all. So you sit down and explain to them. He still doesn't get it. Somehow thinks he gets it, he writes a program, comes back, you correct it, back and forth. Everybody is unhappy. Now you throw the paper at ChatGPT, or in this case Claude, it generates a program. Couple of rounds, you don't have to go back directly. It works with prompts. It generates it. It works. And because you know what you want, you can validate it, right? And that is the brave new world we are getting to. So what it means is that average basic computer science programs won't cut it. you cannot piggyback on this, everybody not knowing, I don't know how to program, that will be gone. I mean, at some point, that is the AI, you tell it, I'll program it, already happening. It will execute the programs also, that is also happening. So things may become more easier and easier. It's just like using calculator. You don't have one person, I did a bachelor's in doing calculators, you give me the problem, I'll do it, you won't do it, right? But remember, at one time, those were the people that they learnt the math, and they were the only people who knew how to do additions and multiplications, etc. They were doing the calculations in villages. They were the local account keepers, if you will. Now, with all these things, etc., it's becoming easier and easier. Why would you need a special purpose account keeper unless you can do more? Therefore, two ways directions that one can go. One is what MIT calls it a bilingual education. That is, treat as computers plus some other subject. That subject, what can it be? It can be any subject. That is computer science and logistics, computer science and biology, computer science and actuarial science. Anything, computer science plus this. Idea is that you are going to be this, whatever it is. You are going to be a biologist with a computer science knowledge. You are going to be a journalist with a computer science knowledge. Exactly. For example, that in journalism there is a group, data-driven journalism.
Yes.
And in fact, New York Times hires quite a number of people, data-driven journalists. In fact, some of the best computer visualization people in the industry are working with New York Times. Mike Bostock, all visualizations. He's a god of computer visualizations. Works for New York Times. Can you believe? Like that. So that infusion of computer science into every subject, it cannot happen unless you are educated in both. So that is the way the curriculum should be changed. There cannot be they can be, but very few people. But it has to be. That lesson is exactly relevant to me directly. For example, we start an AI company. We call ourselves just AI company. Let me tell you the harsh reality. On average, SAP implementation, a company spends around $70-80 million. When I was in HCL, any kind of a deal that if it is not less than $10 million, I wouldn't even go out of my home. I work out of home. I have to go to meet the customer. That's the kind of money that they spend on IT thing. You know what an average AI program, how much they spend? 200,000, 300,000. Look at the number disparity. But on the other hand, the flip side of it is, once you basically become a domain expert, you say, I will solve the problem that you have with using AI or whatever, doesn't matter. You are not able to solve the problem today. I have some magic bean here, using which I will be able to solve the problem. That's all. As long as you are able to solve the problem, you are in. We are able to get to the companies which likes of HCL can never get to. We directly work with researchers. We produce molecules, all with AI, right? But that took us not pure AI. It took us a PhDs in biology working with it. If I want to be in this field, I should have done a PhD, combined kind of a degree. This combined degrees is a concept that is going to become more and more and more popular. I attended a course in MIT that is online, biology course. 60-70% of the people are computer science people, right? That is the bilingual education that you do. You need to think of it as just like how in childhood you learned mathematics and everything, right? And then you went on to become whatever, right? You treat computers exactly the same way. It's a basic literacy. You learned how to read and write. You learned how to use ChatGPT and how to execute programs. I hope it becomes even simpler, but at some point it will. You count it at that, and then you become specialized in that. That is the trend one. That is namely, don't call yourself computer science. You call yourself computer science plus something else. That's first. Trend two is you basically up the game. That is, your challenge is to not write simple programs. You really need to be able to provide end-to-end solutions. Usually, that biggest challenge is translating a problem into computer. That is, in essence, that is, you have a world out there. You are trying to look at the world, solve the world problem. That you need to somehow translate it into a computer. That is it's a practice, and all the college assignments needs to be re-engineered towards that. In fact, one of the things that what we in our interview process now, as I said, that is when 90% of people are passing the test became completely invalid. So we had to do something else. But one of the things that what we trained these days was, we bring people in guys like you come and say, this is the problem I have. Tell me what you can do for you. They need to go and figure out a way to identify the problem, translate the problem, come with a solution that works for me. I'm not going to tell you what I only describe what troubles I'm having. You tell me how you benefit my life. If they can get to that kind of an education, then pure computer science education they will have good future. On the other hand, if you say, give me the manual, I'll read it and I code, ChatGPT will read faster and produce code better. If not now, pretty soon. Already in the lead code, etc., Claude, etc., is doing 90% something like that, which means that is the average college student is not going to be able to compete with that.
Finally, China has come up with DeepSeek.
Right.
America has so many other are coming up. Should India have one sooner or later? Should Indian government invest in it?
No need.
Otherwise, wouldn't our sovereignty be, I mean, in one sense, our data may be compromised?
I tell you one more. So, for example, I have my laptop here. Do you know I'm running DeepSeek on my laptop? One version of DeepSeek I'm running on my laptop. It's free. It's open source. You can take it. Right? I mean, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can enhance it. We can put the wheel on chariots. We can put wheel on something else. We can do that. There is no danger to that, mostly because thanks to the open source, it will catch up. You just wait and catch up. And if you want to invest in, don't invest in that directly at all. Give it to the universities and have them do auxiliary things with it. Otherwise, it will happen one shot, lot of money, one hero. We need a where everybody is hero kind of thing. That. So I went to college. They asked me this question: shouldn't the government be invested in this thing? And I asked the students. All of them are studying AML. I asked them, how many of you run your own DeepSeek? Not even one. Not even the college. When a laptop actually can run a version of DeepSeek, none of these people did it. So how can, I mean, that is a change that needs to happen, not another DeepSeek. It will be copycat. But on the other hand, in a land where 1 million people can actually program using DeepSeek, suddenly it will completely transform this thing. The fact is, because of open source, we don't have to worry about it. I tell you, very bigger threat is, in a country where it doesn't have an operating system of its own, it's depending on Windows. How come nobody is saying we develop our own Windows? And every one of these government officials use WhatsApp, which is controlled by one person who actually tried to get into good books of Trump. Why is nobody worried about it? The fact of the matter is, this country's sovereignty is not compromised by AI. It's already compromised by several other things. And that's what they really should be focusing on. You know what China did? China had their own version of Linux. Open source, they took it, they slapped on it, they control it. India should get into the bandwagon of Linux. India should basically say, because open source, right? Nobody is. If you invest in, if your people are big enough, get better and better. In fact, you end up dictating to other countries. We have this many university students. How many of the people actually have enhanced open source software? Why not basically say, everybody, if you want to get a degree, enhance one open source software. That's your private product. They're not doing that. If only they have done that, firstly, they will learn how to work with people remotely. They will learn how to effectively work with some of the best practices. And the best thing yet, they become a part of a bigger movement, contributing to something big. And that makes them a part of a global workforce. That is the kind of thing. So, unfortunately, DeepSeek doesn't give that. There are a lot of other things that give that, and that's where they should be focusing on.
Thank you so much, Ramarao garu. It has been a very fascinating. I enjoyed the discussion very much and learned a lot. In fact, I hope you all did, and I hope you also enjoyed the discussion.
Yeah, I did enjoy the discussion. It's not often I talk to inquisitive people like yourself. I was talking to students. I told them only one of the conditions in our company to get a job is, if I'm interviewing, the other person should ask some questions. Otherwise, how do I know whether he's interested in the job or not? I'm telling all these people, what do employers these days in the era of AI, what are they looking for in employees? And I said that is, unless you ask, nobody is going to get a job. Even then, nobody asks.